Okay, let's start.
And you do nothing but vary his jaw width. When they're ovulating, the guy with the wider jaw is more attractive, and when they're not ovulating, the farthest away from that, the guy with the thinner jaw is more attractive, and that's associated with...
That's not true. For me personally, I am attracted to men with a wide jaw, whether I'm on my cycle or not, or ovulating or not. All throughout my cycle, I prefer the wide jaw. Actually, I like all different types of characteristics that imply high testosterone. But feminine, to me, is different from biological testosterone running through someone's body, which conveys that they are fertile. Having a wide jaw doesn't mean that you're going to act masculine. I can tell you. I've been around men who had wide jaws. They weren't masculine at all. They're very feminine. Many different cases where they had wide jaws and they were very feminine. So, to me, it's just interesting that you would say that. Because, like, my experience, a wide jaw doesn't mean you're going to behave femininely. Masculine. It doesn't mean your energy is masculine either. It just means you have a lot of testosterone because you are a fertile young man. Usually my preference is young men. I don't like men older than me, but continue.
Testosterone levels. And so women who are fertile like more masculine men. And basically, if you're on the pill, then you're never in that ovulation phase. And so one thing that may have happened, and I don't know this for sure, but it's interesting to consider, is that since women have been taking the birth control pill, their preference for less masculine men has become more pronounced. And that could easily be one of the things that's...
Yeah, I don't take birth control. I took birth control once when I was 17, and another time when I was like 24 or something. I don't take birth control normally. And those were for medical reasons, so not on a regular basis. One time it was like a couple days to get my period, and another time was for a month. But yeah, that's all I've done. I've not taken birth control on a regular basis. Never have. Just not my thing. And for me, I started being sexually active at 26, so it wasn't for personal sexual activity. Anyway, continue.
Fueling at least some of the tension that's existed and exists now politically between men and women. But the point is that you just cannot ignore the massive consequences of a biological revolution like that, and to make any other factor causal when you're trying to understand the political movements, especially in the last, say, 40 years, you're putting the cart before the horse. Now, it's reasonable to point out that the pill wouldn't have been accepted as a technology if certain political changes with regards to the emancipation of women hadn't already been in place, right? No one would have even been allowed to do something like investigate contraception. So you can't separate the biological from the political entirely, but it's still very useful to organizing your thinking to realize just how profound a revolution that was. But now back in the Victorian times, see, there's another thing about sexuality. Modern people like to think that there's nothing dangerous about sex, and that is like the stupidest thing you could possibly ever hypothesize, because everything about it is dangerous. It's dangerous emotionally, it's dangerous socially, it's dangerous because of the possibility of unwanted pregnancy, and it's dangerous because of the possibility of sickness, and that's a major one. I mean, so when AIDS emerged in the 1980s, that could have easily killed all of us. Now, the fact that it didn't was wonderful, but it did kill hundreds of millions of people. So it was no joke. It was a big deal. And AIDS mutated to take advantage of promiscuity. And so the relationship between sexual behavior and the transmission of disease is actually mediated at the biological level. But anyways, back in the 1890s, they had the same problem, right? They had the problem with syphilis. And syphilis is one nasty disease. It can mimic almost any other disease, and it's devastating to your nervous system, and you can pass it on to your children. And so part of the reason that sexuality was heavily repressed in the Victorian period was not only because of the possibility of unwanted pregnancy, the relative poverty of people. Back in 1895 in Europe, the average person lived on less than $1 a day in modern terms. It's almost impossible to understand how poor people were. And so sex in a poverty-stricken place is also a lot more dangerous than it is in a rich place, because especially if given the lack of employment opportunities for women back in the Victorian period, if you happened to get pregnant out of wedlock, you were in serious trouble. And so the fact that sexuality was repressed is hardly a surprise, because it was so difficult to integrate into the full-fledged personality, and
Yeah, so I understand that. To me, I think everyone should be careful and protected, like wear a condom and so forth, But to me, I think all in all, when you talk about the whole thing of birth control, not everyone works the same way. Female sexuality isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. I know a lot of men think it is. It's so weird. Because I think men have different types too, don't you? I mean, I do think that a lot of men are attracted to very feminine women. But, I'm pretty sure you don't all have the same interests. So I just find it really interesting that they always categorize women as if, like, all of us have the same sexuality and we're all gonna prefer a man that acts masculine, or is masculine, or whatever. The testosterone in someone being fertile has nothing to do with if someone is actually a feminine man or a masculine man. That's all I have to say here. I'll be done. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, comment down below. Have a great day.